All right, Virgo. So now this week from Late Vampire, you pulled Hunter, Aggressor, Tracker, and Provider, which is fantastic coming out of a resurrection. Hell yeah. But the problem is that Perseverance from Chakra Wisdom seems to be something that shows up for you consistently here. It's almost like you're giving up before you've actually tried. Now, Hunter, the blessing says that it is time now for you to actively seek that which you want. See how far your strength can take you. Working with this card says it is time to establish how to obtain what it is that you want. You must not ask another to go after it. You must find that part from within that has the courage to chase what you would make yours and be honest about it. So basically what it's saying is that now is the time for you to start aggressively tracking down what you want. Be honest with yourself about it and go after the things that you want, and don't wait for things to change to do that. Now, Perseverance, the very first quote for this says, don't give up before the miracle. The inspiration says, when we do our chosen work, we are serving the highest order. If we stop, we upset the universal balance. What you work toward will materialize. You may not see it, but it lies ahead. The personal question says, can I ignore the feelings that would sidetrack me? Will I let go of fear and persevere? The key ideas are breaking through, unseen help at work, feeling taken for granted, and overcoming doubts. And that may be, what's happening here. It's like, it's time for you to aggressively go after what you want, but don't give up before you've even tried. All right, Virgo, here we go. Here's the energy coming through. The High Priestess. Wow. Paying attention to your intuition. But the other thing too is that, like I've said with her, she's a passive energy. Basically what she's telling you to do here is to observe the situation here before you make any decisions or you act. The action here is to observe the situation. Now, the High Priestess can suggest that there is some hidden wisdom that you're learning about now. It's a little bit different than the moon, but the moon is at her feet, which, for me is saying that illumination is there, right? And that's, where the intuition starts to come into play here. Now, in the past, the Hangman, wow. So waiting to see something here, but it's also about needing to see something from a different perspective. And again, there's no action. The action is to wait and see. You need to just be patient here almost. Observe the situation before you make any decisions. But in the past, you may have been waiting to receive some enlightenment. But the High Priestess is suggesting that, it's there. It's there. Man, Virgo, what's up? What is up? Judgment in the present. Judgment for me scares me. And I've said this before only because I don't like the idea of having to do the review. I don't want to relive half the shit I've been through. But what judgment is saying is assessment, atonement, and rebirth. There are second chances here for you. And that is what, you're having to pull on your intuition with here. Because when you look at judgment, right, the call, hearing the calling, the call to action. But it's also about, making those amends with the past. And being okay with moving forward from it. But, again, with the High Priestess here, it's needing to really tap into your intuitive nature here and hear what is happening, right? To hear that calling, to understand what it is that you need to do. But there needs to be, amends with the past. That is a big part of judgment though too, but it is talking about rebirth. Future conditions, the Five of Cups, what the hell? So there's hurt emotions, and I think that, that's the issue here. When you're looking at the Hangman, first of all, the waiting period, wanting to receive enlightenment. The whole point of being in that state of limbo is to set aside the ego so that you can see things from a different light. And that's where the enlightenment starts to come in. You have the High Priestess sitting here, but then with judgment, really needing to listen here. And I think for some of you, you've thought that you made amends with the past, but truly you haven't here, because there's still some hurt emotions, you know. And again, not all is lost. That's the big thing with the Five of Cups. Not all is lost. You have to take your focus away from what is gone and start looking at what you still have to build upon here. But I worry because you move from Judgment to the Five of Cups. That to me is, you know, making inaccurate judgments. You know, because you're still left with hurt emotions here. Okay. Gotcha. The Page of Swords is your best path to follow. For those of you who've been watching me for a while, you know that for me, the Page of Swords is the messenger of conflict. This is the shit that you don't want to hear, that you don't want to deal with. There may be things that are being said that you're going to have to question here. And definitely when it comes to people, you are going to have to really observe what these people are doing, because there is a question of truth with the Page of Swords. Ask questions. Anything that's being said to you, make sure you're asking questions here. You know, and that's the other part of, you know, the Page of Swords. It's asking you to deal with conflict surrounding anything in your life with intelligence and with grace. You know, you want to deal with these situations in a more mature way. But I feel like, you know, it's sitting here is saying to you that you need to be careful about what is being said. You know, because there's inaccurate judgments being made about the situation here. It's leaving you with hurt feelings. You know, you're going to have to watch and pay attention. Watch and pay attention. Ask the questions that need to be asked here. And, you know, be careful about what information is coming through to you as well. You know, you don't want to be believing in lies, you know, and false things, because again, you know, I question the truth there. I question it. In your environment strength, my God, Virgo, needing to tap into your inner strength here when it comes to, you know, making a judgment call in this situation. Because if you don't, you're going to end up hurt. But I have a feeling, though, that the situation is going to leave you hurt anyway, which worries me. And again, strength, right? Grace, dealing with things with intelligence, grace, and gentle force. But you're going to have to start pulling on your inner strength here. And I you know, I love seeing strength. I think it's great and I think it's beautiful for Virgo. But, you know, I worry here. You know, you're trying to see the situation from a different perspective here. You know, your intuition, I feel like, is going to be blocked, but it's going to be blocked because, you know, you're making inaccurate judgments based on what is being said to you. And either way, what I worry about here is where it's leading here to the Five of Cups. Your hopes and your fears. Okay, so now, with the Ace of Cups being there, for some of you, you know, this is basically you hoping for a new emotional beginning. You know, and for a lot of you, it may still have to do with like pain from the past. You know, when you're looking at the Five of Cups in Judgment and talking about rebirth, you can't really go into that second phase of life here if you haven't made amends with the past. You know, and you can't expect to see a new emotional beginning either if you're not making the right judgments. Now, you know, for some of you, the hope is that there's going to be a new emotional experience. But I think that for some of you, you're not seeing it because there's too much conflict surrounding a situation. There's just too much being said here that may not be accurate. You know, and that's where you're needing to have some strength with this. And I'm telling you, you have to pay attention to your intuition. You know, and if things are starting to come to light here, you need to question it. You need to question what's being said to you for sure. Oh, man, Virgo. All right. Oh, my God. Oh, you got to be kidding me here. Oh, my goodness. Death. So death is the outcome. These are major changes, right? The stone says, Life is not taken, only changed. It is going to be a major ending of a phase of your life, and you moving in from one phase to the next here. When it comes to death, I can understand why the Five of Cups is there. There is sadness around this because something is ending. It is a major ending. But it is, again, the chance for you to rise from the ashes. I mean, it's both here. Both of them are talking about death, transformation, and rebirth happening for you. But, it's going to be surrounding a situation here that is going to leave you kind of like with really hurt emotions, and it's going to change you. But it is going to be based on the conflict surrounding the situation. I'm telling you, I feel like things are being said that are either not true or are like being said to intentionally cause conflict. I mean, either way, it's lies. I don't feel like there's accuracy here. In whatever situation you're dealing with, there's way too much surrounding it that is just, not good. It's not good with the Page of Swords. And it's no wonder why the Five of Cups is sitting there. My goodness. Oh, I'm telling you. Okay, I'm not even going to clarify it anymore. The Five of Swords. I'm telling you. It's bullshit conflict. It is bullshit all the way around. Like I can't say it enough. There is no truth whatsoever. And you know it. And I think that with the Five of Swords attached to death, I think some of you are going to feel like a little bit betrayed over this. Like, I almost feel like you knew, but you weren't really open to seeing it. And that Ace of Cups really bugs the crap out of me because it's there. The new beginning is there, but I don't think it's in the way that you were hoping for. There is a potential for a new emotional beginning for you, but it's going to be apart from a situation that you've been trying to see differently here, but is just not changing. What's going to end up changing out of this is that it's going to be over with here. And you are going to go through a major transformation. My God, Virgo. And it's no wonder why perseverance is there. I think for some of you, you may have been going after something, but it just isn't happening. And now you're ready to give up on it. Now on the other hand, though, too, you have to be honest with yourself about the things that you're tracking down, But don't give up. Don't ever give up on the things that you want. If you want a new emotional beginning, there's no reason why that can't happen. But it cannot happen with the situation the way it is currently. Solar plexus, the beginning and love. Oh yes, the beginning of love for yourself. The solar plexus is your sense of self, your identity, who you are and where you are headed. And it is going to be the beginning of love for you. And I think more importantly, it's going to be love for yourself. Away from conflict that is surrounding you, that is making you feel bad. So that is good to see. It is good to see. And that Ace of Cups is there. I just think that for some of you, it's going to hold something a little bit different than what you're expecting. But either way, it does have the potential to manifest. But I do think that with the soul trees here, this is the beginning of you learning to love yourself. Positive thinking and faith will bring you romance. Yes, I have my issues with positive thinking. Like, you can't be angry and thinking positive about stuff, right? Like that, those thoughts have its place. It just depends on what you do with it and how you react to it, Because if we didn't have those negative thoughts, we'd learn nothing. But definitely you want to be optimistic about your love life. You don't want to think that you're not ever going to have the love that you're wanting. And playfulness, to recapture romance, allow your inner youthful spirit of fun to shine, which is very nice. Now, what fell out was religious factors. So basically that card is just saying that, your spiritual path is going to lead you to the right partner. And that definitely could be with the singles. But, I just didn't feel like that was it for the couples. Now, for the couples, children, with playfulness, it doesn't look difficult. For those of you who are just dealing with a different situation totally here outside of, your love life, it could be that, you guys are like introducing, children into a new relationship, or maybe somebody is wanting to have children. But I've always said with this card, if children are involved, you just want to make sure that they're not affected by anything within the relationship. They need to be happy too, right? Happy children, happy relationship. But playfulness is good, right? Especially for those of you who are wanting to have children. But Virgo, whatever situation you're dealing with here, I think it does need to end so that you can see that new emotional beginning. All right, Virgo, so, this one really bothers me coming out of your last reading, especially with resurrection and recovery. I think that, first of all, looking at Hunter and perseverance, for some of you, you may be giving up before you even start here. Now, for some of you, you may have hunted down something here, but you're not seeing it, so you're giving up. And it may be because of what is happening around the situation here. Now, I really do think that for some of you, you've been like wanting to see something different out of this. You think that you're making the accurate assessment here with judgment, but I don't think that you are because of the Five of Cups being underneath this. You're still going to be in a spot here where there's some like emotional hurt. And it may be because there's a lot of conflict surrounding a situation. I mean, like, seriously, these two know it's bullshit. It's all lies. And it bothers me, but it's ending. It is ending. It has to end. And that's good, right? You're looking at rebirth. Absolutely. Rising from the ashes, right? And having a new phase in your life start where there's a better understanding of who you are and your solar plexus, right? Who are you? What is your identity? How do you identify with yourself? Because with the conflict, that's not it. There's a need here for you to pull on your inner strength when it comes to dealing with this. And I really do think that Spirit is trying to tell you that you have to pay attention. You have to pay attention to what is being said here. You're going to have to ask questions. You're going to have to observe the actions of others. And you need to pay attention to your intuition here, because I don't think that you're making the right judgments on this. And I think it's because you were hoping to see something different in the past. And it's still coming through. But nothing has changed with this, except that you end up with death here, and there is going to be major change and major endings. Now, with the Ace of Cups being here, it has the potential to manifest. Absolutely. It's just that I think for some of you, and the feeling I get around it, is that that new beginning is going to be something different than what you had expected. You're going to see something totally different. Now, I do think that you hoped that there was going to be a new beginning with the situation, but there's not. When you're looking at the Five of Swords, it's not good. It's not good. But I do feel like that Ace of Cups is still there. It's still there. And then you have the beginning of love, and it could be a new love situation. And it could be the beginning of you loving yourself, again, with the solar plexus. Now, Virgo, I would just, be careful about what is being said and what it does to you emotionally, Just be careful with that, and go with the changes that need to happen, because seriously, with the Page of Swords and the Five of Swords, it needs to be over with. Like, it has to be, right? Now, in terms of a relationship, for those of you who are single, stay optimistic. Absolutely stay optimistic about your love life. Especially if, this is an ending of a situation that you thought was going to, like, resurrect, and it didn't. But you don't want to give up on the idea that you can't have love in your life, though, either. Now, for those of you who are in a relationship, children, and playfulness, this may be something completely different from the relationship period. As far as, like, what's happening here, it could just be things that you're dealing with that, like, are external to a relationship that may have to do with, family, things from the past because of judgment being there. You moving into a different phase of your life, seeing things a little bit differently. I mean, all the majors that you're pulling here are just unreal. But anyway, for those of you who are in a relationship, right, you have children and playfulness. Absolutely, playfulness is the way to create some children's, right? For those of you who are wanting children within a relationship. Now, on the other hand, that playful energy, when you're introducing children into, like, you know, new relationships, is good. It's a good thing. It makes them feel good about what is happening with their parents, right? But, you know, children shouldn't be a factor in the relationship, because the children should never be affected by what's happening. Now, you know, again, it could just be you needing to be a little bit playful so that you can have children. But, I mean, as far as relationships go, I mean, you look all right. What I'm worried about is what you're dealing with the conflict. And whatever it is that needs to end here, it, you know, is going to lead to a new beginning for you. It's going to be a new beginning for you. It will be. It's just there are some things that definitely are going to have to be done and over with, especially surrounding any kind of conflict and any kind of lies and any kind of mistruths.